Once you had lots of objects in a design, it becomes important how you make selections of them. One of the first things is a shortcut to lock a certain element that you don't wish to make selections of. In this case, that is the background color. That's a filled rectangle or square, which I can just simply click on and then lock it from the object menu by choosing Lock Selection. Worth remembering the shortcut is Command or Control 2. So by using that option, I will never be able to select that square in the background, which makes it easier to select other items. So if I zoom a little bit closer, I can, for example, select this cloud quickly. Although it's made up of two separate parts, I can make a selection by creating a rectangular marquee selection like that. Now I can move it easily around. The same thing applies to this cloud. Here again, it's made up of two separate elements, which I could divide if I wanted to, but if I want to move them together, I can just select both and now move it easily together. If I want to select, let's say, the flower and the cloud together, I can do a selection on them. Now, as you can see, I can move them together at the same time. What if I wish to select the flower, this pin, and the cloud at the same time? If I make a selection like this, it will involve and include this outline as well, or that path, which I didn't want to move around. So in these cases, I can hold down the Shift key and click on that to remove it from the selection. So Shift click can add or remove from selections, and that's a very useful technique. I can also add this other cloud to the selection if I want to. Similarly to saving a view, you can also save a selection. If I go up to the select menu, there I can find save selection, and it is almost like grouping object, but without actually physically grouping them together. So it will just be very easy to load this selection back at any time later on. I'm just going to call it items and then deselect by clicking anywhere outside. Now if I want to load that selection, I just come up here and I will find the items all the way at the bottom, which will immediately reselect a couple of items that we had before. Saving a selection can be useful, but it's not as effective as working with groups, which we will see in the next video. If you select a certain item, let's say this brighter part of the cloud, we can go up to the select menu and choose Same, Fill and Stroke, which means we can quickly select all the other items in this design that has the same fill and stroke colors. And as you can see, it selected all those bright details. Even the plane has some of those elements, and of course all these dashed lines in the design. Similarly to the select same option, you can also use another tool called the magic wand, with which you can again click on a certain part of the design and it will find similar looking elements. And if you want, you can also double click on the magic wand to refine the tolerance of this selection. And also you can change what you are looking for, similar fill colors, stroke weights, and even other options below. So if I reduce the tolerance, let's say down to 1, and then I try again, clicking on the same object, you will see now it will only select the exact same colored objects. I can do the same with this orange color here, and you will see again, it will select only the right half of all the orange colors in the design. Apart from the magic wand, there's also another great selection tool called the lasso tool. With this tool, you can make selections of objects by just drawing around them. So as you can see, if I wanted to select these objects very quickly, I could do that. And now if I want to move them around, I can do that. The only important thing about the lasso tool is that it works more like the direct selection tool, which means it will select only certain points of a design. So if I make a selection around this camera, for example, and select only half of it, that means only those points will be moved around, so not the whole shape. It really depends whether you then use the right arrow tool and start dragging these points around. You see it starts distorting the object. Or after the lasso tool, you switch to the selection tool and then start moving around your selection. because the black arrow or path selection tool will still switch to selecting the whole object. Also interesting technique is when you invert your selection. Let's just say we wanted to select everything but the sun. That way I can select that object and go up to select, inverse. And that will select everything else apart from the sun. Now, whenever you use inverse, don't forget that it will also include selections from the other artboards, not just your current artboard. So in case you are working with multiple artboards, it will actually include selections from everywhere else. And that applies also to the select all option. But good to remember that you have a separate option to select all from your active artboard. And of course, if you quickly want to deselect things, you can also use this option here, or even remember its shortcut, which is Control or Command Shift A. So that's the same as clicking somewhere outside where there's nothing to be selected. That can deselect your current selection, or remember the shortcut once again, Command or Control Shift A. I also use this quite often. Well, going through these techniques, we talked enough about selections, and now it's time to put selections into use and start organizing our objects. That's exactly what I'm going to show you in the next video.